Good morning. This morning is the 7th day of January, Saturday morning, here in the mountains, the year 2023, and our first Zazenkai day of deep sitting, coming from ease together. So thank you very much, everyone, for making this day possible. Let me begin with some writing from the beginning of the 4th century text, the Visuddhimagga, perfect teaching for our times. The inner tangle and the outer tangle. This generation is entangled in a tangle. So I ask you, who succeeds in untangling the tangle? The inner tangle and the outer tangle. This generation is entangled in a tangle. So I ask you, who succeeds in untangling the tangle? Animated spirit asked the Buddha this question while he was sitting, and the Buddha answered, of course, the one who can sit attentively, calm and resolute, coming from ease, ready to relieve suffering, and ready to go into the tangle, is the one that helps untangle the tangle. But we know enough about this tangle that we're in to know that there is truly, as in the natural living world, no untangling, a tangled up tangle. The only way that I know as a gardener and Dharma practitioner, beginner, seasoned, and committed Dharma practitioner and gardener is to go into the tangle, in, all the way in, and follow the maze. Mayumi Oda, the artist of this extraordinary tanka here on the wall of Upaya, of the Circle of the Way Temple, for a number of years, we lived together in the same home in Muir Beach. And on the gate of our house was an extraordinary white Chinese wisteria, the most beautiful tangled up plant on earth. It climbed up over the gate, over the garden gate, and ripped off a couple of boards and just devoured the gate, the threshold, and any other plant material that was near it. And every few years, Mayumi would come out with a large pair of shears and attempt to untangle the tangle. She'd leave a lot of wisteria carnage on the ground, step back proud as an artist that she is, and step away. And the next season, it was invigorated all the more and enveloping all the more. And living with this plant, walking by it every day, I realized there is no untangling the tangle. And in Gardening at the Dragon's Gate, the book I was invited to write a number of years ago, the frontispiece, a beautiful engraving by illustrator and dear friend Davis Tussell, is the wisteria on the garden gate, tearing apart the dragon's gate, a dragon itself. Nevertheless, we don't turn away, make light, or try to undo the tangle we're in now in these times. And therefore, all the more significant how we practice, how we set our hearts and mind to practice. This morning, early in the morning, during first period of meditation, Dainin, Wendy, and Kodo, Noah, and I were together greeting the wider community and offering basic instruction in sitting meditation. And it was the most beautiful honor to begin that way. And I want to do that in some sense today with you, so that no matter how seasoned and experienced we seem to be, we are at core, at essence, at in the very central part of our practice, complete beginners, innocence, cloud and water wanderers. Un for cloud, shui for water, un shui, un sui. cloud and water wanderers. So poet and activist and translator Gary Snyder says, don't move. Stay still. Once you find a place that feels halfway right, and it seems time, settle down with a vow not to move anymore. Take a look at one place on earth, one circle of people, one realm of beings over time, and stay still. I'm not talking, nor is the poet, talking about colonizing a place, but truly inhabiting a place and being able to handle the paradox and richness of Hung Jur, also reminding us that a person of the way fundamentally does not dwell anywhere. So how do we do both? Coming from a distance, or even from down the road, coming from a very full, exhausting, finishing life, coming from great loss and sadness, coming here to settle the self on the self. How do we do it? Stay in the tangle and also disentangle. Do both at the same time in our practice. And so each person's practice is immensely consequential. Everything matters. To matter, everything is material. Everything, every movement, every vow, every prayer, every dream matters. And we set aside a full day to acknowledge how important entering really is. I mean, we can play with stop, look, listen instructions to every child when you're crossing a dangerous road. For us too, let's stop, profoundly stop, and look and listen to what's said and not said, and to find a way to be fully, thoroughly present in the mystery of this time together. And you know, when we signed the scroll for Shiso, we signed, sealed, and delivered our solemn commitment to finding a way to deeply practice. Something is happening behind me, and I see it on your faces, and I invite you, whether it's dog, human, the scourge of COVID, whatever it is, let it roll off you, please. We have to learn this now. We have to learn this. We have to learn, and we have to encourage each other. You know, it's so beautiful this morning with Dinan recognizing what a gift it is to have hooded eyes, where we're not looking around. We're not trying to find a way to help or to hurry or to interpret. So drop down, please, drop down in whatever way you can. The Cultivating the Empty Field book that we've been studying and that we worked with yesterday, which is a companion to the book of Serenity, is a book I remember when that book was published. And Taigen Leighton, who was practicing at Green Gulch, offered us copies of that book, and I kept it so close it is tattered. I even think I slept with it under my pillow. I felt that this text was so important. I was a new practitioner, and I felt that the words were burning into my body and mind as I read them. I felt they were both cool and magnificent, but also fiery words. And I think that is the way to practice, as if to save our heads from fire, but also to find our own cool response. So every morning at Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, we chant a little bit differently before putting on Buddha's robe, great robe of liberation, a field far beyond form and emptiness, the Tathagata's teaching for all beings. And Taigen, as a translator, begged us for years, please, it's a field of benefaction. Please, a field far beyond form and emptiness. Benefaction is too nice. So when the book came out, Cultivating the Empty Field, I felt like we were talking yesterday, I felt penetration of goodness in that title, and recognizing that every field we cultivate is an empty field, but never separate from the fullness of all that is. And so in combination with these beautiful practice instructions, and also with living a Dharma life for 25 years at San Francisco Zen Center at Green Gulch Farm, and my work was, along with my husband and others, to cultivate extraordinary lowland fields running all the way out to the Pacific Ocean, 100 acres of land at Green Gulch, about 8 acres were arable, running all the way down to the sea. And for those of us for whom growing food and sharing food was our samu, our practice, our offering, this was an extraordinary gift. And we were influenced by the Dharma study, particularly by this book and by the koan study of the 100 cases of the Shoyu-roku, the Blue Cliff Record, and Mumonkan. Those books were our home text. And of course, the Shobogenzo. In fact, we even had a secret practice. I shouldn't pluralize. I had a secret practice of now and then, when no one was around, looked both ways, I would stand in front of the garden gate before going in and turn like a dervish to disorient myself, and then turn the other way so that I didn't think I knew where I was going, what I was doing, or what the field was going to tell me that morning. So in that work, in that primary practice, I was completely grateful. And also, it helped me come in fresh to practice every day. And I'm asking each of us, find a way, in your own way, whatever it is, to come into fresh connection with the field of practice that we're generating. It is not established, and yet nothing can take it apart. And it depends utterly on your fertile footsteps and your keen commitment to settled, curious practice. And so each one of us will find a different way to manifest. I'll always manifest as a gardener. It's in my body, mind, from the time I was a child. A Dharma gardener. And each others of us will manifest in different ways. You will know what your core calling is, and you are welcome to come forward with that in mind as we go into the field of winter practice period. To forget how to tend the soil, Gandhi reminded us, is to forget ourselves. And we know more, observed Leonardo da Vinci, we know more about the celestial movement of the skies than about what we're made of right under our feet. So to cultivate the empty field, to come with ease into the inquiry, depends on investigating and knowing what we're made of. I remember many years ago, and forgive me for taking these glasses on and off. I know it drives my dear friend who's probably watching absolutely nuts, but I can't see you through these, but I can't see my little handwriting without these. So anyway, years ago, I remember digging into the ground at the Edible Schoolyard with Sharp. We were going to cultivate. We had a whole lot of 6th grade students around us. We dug down into the ground, opened the ground, And the children began to scream because La Niña de la Tierra, or the Jerusalem cricket, poured out of the earth. 2 or 3 of these striped shellac insects. They represent good luck and life, but they are terrifying. And the children are screaming. And I said, what's wrong? And they said, how can something alive be in the dirt? Because of not perceiving that soil is alive. You know, if we have a garden the size of this beautiful meditation hall, or a little bit smaller, maybe the size of the Zen windmill garden, I did research on this, then a healthy such place would contain 20 billion bacteria, 250 billion fungi, 200 million single-celled protozoa, some 3 million nematodes, thousands of mites, 2,000 at least earthworms, and a few more Jerusalem crickets, to remind you how terrifying it is to be asleep when it comes to looking at the soil. So the earth is alive, and our practice, we see an empty field, we see a blank canvas, but the soil and the life and the practice is alive, and we are made, just as Monica is made of rice. Others of you are made of corn. Others of you are made of barley. Some of us are made of wheat. Whether we're allergic to it or not, we're made of it. It is our home grain. These are the grains and grasses, the plants of the earth that are our sustaining home foods. 72 labors bring us this rice. Can we remember where it comes from? It comes from the so-called empty ground, from cultivating the empty field that seems blank and asleep and is wildly and perpetually alive. So as a Zen farmer, there are certain principles that I know are important in investigating the Dharma. And I hope they'll be relevant to you this morning. First of all, learn in whatever way you can to cultivate the ground you come from, and know your ground. Stand your ground, know your ground, be your ground, pay homage to the ground you come from. You know, Leonardo da Vinci says we know more about the stars than the ground, than the earth, the taste of the earth. And so he devised pastels made of the earth that he mixed with clay and glycerin and colors of the earth so that he could paint with the colors of the earth and bring us back into consciousness hundreds of years ago. So first of all, cultivate and know the ground you come from. And you don't have to stick to it or claim it or think that you own it or think that it's your province, because it isn't. We're all guests of the ground we come from and the first people that cultivated it. We know this. And yet it's important to know. The field of life neither arises nor perishes, neither stains nor purifies, neither increases nor decreases. It turns, each molecule of soil turns around a center that is empty. Otherwise, soil can't live and move and grow unless it has both cohesion and also emptiness and space in order to turn. So I do not speak metaphorically. This is graphic, actual teaching. We are made of elemental clay, grit, stone, mineral, water, earth, sky, and mystery and spaciousness. And to come home to that truth is immensely important. And it's beautiful when, as Blake, I think, poet Blake says, the mind of winter, winter, when the plant says nothing. So winter is a wonderful time to practice because we're not distracted. The winter field takes us down to the essence, to essence again and again. So turning around a center that allows us to move, like a wheelbarrow can only turn if it's hollow in this, if there's room for the wheel to move. And I know I've said this many, many times, the wheel represents the teaching of the Dharma. It also leaves a flat, straight track on the ground, a rut. So we follow the wheel of life, the mystery of life, the Dharma wheel Here it is on the Upaya logo. We follow and exalt and recognize this extraordinary iconic teaching tool, the wheel of the Dharma, and we're careful not to leave a rut, a deep, straight rut on the ground. So in China, the wheel is a fearsome symbol because it has double valence. Both represents continuity and problem of leaving a trace. So important to find this, and then also to ask yourselves, what gives you fertility? What fertilizes your practice? For each one of us, it will be different. Primarily in the growing world, the fertility of life is death. Life into death into life. Nature's round. We would drown in the waste stream of all we generate were it not for the dark decomposers that take apart our mess and return us to zero again and again. And what do? We consume. Endlessly consume. And plants are producing, algae is producing. The natural world is producing to sustain us. And we consume, and the decomposers fertilize, magnetize, and clean the world. So what gives you fertility in your own practice? What will it be? Really ask yourself. And there's from the great psychologist and teacher, Dobrowski, Polish philosopher, talked about positive disintegration. It's very much like what we were talking about yesterday in the teaching, the importance of being able to come apart, to really come apart and be recombined. Positive disintegration. When the world and the way you're living no longer coheres, it must come apart, disintegrate, and be recycled. And there again, the wheel, to cycle again, to turn again. What turns you again and gives you fertility? And I'm not talking just about richness, can be your own brokenness, recycling that. I remember years ago, at Green Gulch, a Dharma talk by a Norman Fisher Roshi, Zoketsu Roshi. And he was talking about how everything has a light. And I remember asking him, it was early in our practice, asking him, what about compost? And he said, compost is a fire. We'll never forget that exchange. And we're deep, close Dharma family. Kathy and Norman, our children were born together. But I felt completely recreated from that observation, that decay has its own fire and everything shines by perishing. So do not be afraid of what's broken in you as fertile fodder for the fire of your intention. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, Terry, to put that compost, burning hot compost, on the ground and cover it, and let there be a fire of fertility that happens, even though it looks dead. Shine. When Joanna Macy and Fran Macy were married, and the minister that married them said, I wish you one gift, that you'll see each other as strangers every day of your married life, and that you will know that you shine by perishing. Your solidity has to perish. We'll see each other new every day and shine by perishing. What will that be for you? Really investigate. We have time to do this. Really ask yourself, what gives me new life? And ask yourself in the container of dedicated meditation practice. And every gardener knows that you pick up what looks like a dead and withered seed, and it has the capacity to give new life. So how to propagate the mystery, how to cultivate your life, keep fertile, and propagate mystery. During this For some of you who have groundedness in California, you may know we've been through, and it's not over, we've been through an extraordinary, yes, what is it? It's got a cyclone name in it, right? It's a one, yeah, the bomb cyclone. There it is again, as you know, just as Christiana told us, the military language, the bomb cyclone. But in fact, 85 mile per hour winds, trees being pulled out of the ground, and a great elder in our community next door, a beautiful crabapple, was pulled out of the ground. Luckily, there was enough rage in the whole process that the tree fell and crashed down on the fence between properties and pulled up a septic system. It didn't go with gently into the night. It roared out. And I was right before practice, and I called the person that lives in the house where the crabapple tree is, and I said, please cut some of the fresh branches at the top and just put them at our house. We'll deal with them. And he did, and then every other branch was chipped, this great being chipped up in a few hours. Unbelievable. At Green Gulch, when one of our big trees fell, we let it lay in state for a full month. I wanted 49 days, I was voted down, but a month, the oak tree, and the children played on it, and we wept, and people put little altars all over the tree. This one was processed with a generator immediately, and I love my neighbor, he's a marvelous man. But a little one of those branches attached to the root system of a crabapple will send forth new life. And this is a mystery, how a piece of ourselves gives rise to a whole new world, just as a seed, which has never been seen before, does. And Roshi was talking about that yesterday when she mentioned bhavana, the seed falling on the empty field. And let me take this down another notch, because this is the season when it's very important to let yourself be fallow. And that means to rest. A fallow animal is an animal that is not pregnant, is resting. Finished with that cycle. A fallow field is a field that looks like it's dead when it's massively alive with potential. And there is in many cultures the practice of opening, cultivating a field that's going to be rested for a year, every 7 years, resting a field so that the fertility can come back on its own. You open the ground and leave it profoundly alone. No seeding, no planting, no feeding, no nurturing. You leave it profoundly alone so that it can regenerate in whatever way the earth itself wants to produce and show. And it's often grass. Grass will come first. Rice is a grass, corn is a grass, wheat is a grass. The grasses come first with their fibrous roots. And who sowed them? And yet they do come from a single seed, a single spear-like seed. The temple is built. So how will you rest and access the mystery of new life here in your practice? And last of all, the real importance of attentiveness. Attend comes from the same root as tantra, stretch past where you're comfortable. To pay attention is to stretch past where you think you can go. And you can do this here in your practice. Stretch past what is comfortable without overstraining. You think, I can't sit still, I can't do this, I can't not call my family, I can't give up coffee, I can't, whatever it is. I can't not do, I can't not help someone. I can't just stand back. I can't let someone suffer from altitude sickness without jumping up and helping. I can't, I've got to go help. No, you don't. Stretch past that and pay attention to yourself. And in that way, stretch toward your deepest vow, which is to meet the challenge and protect the world in these tangled times. Okay, so let's take a breath together. It'll help me take a breath. I mean, I offer you these guidelines with all my heart. They've been extremely efficacious for me. Adapt them. It's this is gardening language, but we are gardeners together. And earth, air, water, fire, and space combine to make the meals, the food that we eat. Numberless beings give their life and labor that we may eat. May we be nourished that we may nourish life. That's our primal vow every time we center around the table. May we be nourished that we may nourish life. So find a way to adapt what I'm offering. And then let's go into the empty field a little bit and into the teaching text that we're going, and let's honor the author. Let's honor the monk, the 67-year-old Chinese monk of the
Let me contact Noah. I think the video froze. Sorry for the inconvenience. We'll just take a breath here while Noah is troubleshooting.
and narrowness, freedom.
Good.
To alleviate, to lighten, to mitigate, to lessen, to slow down, to ease yourself into your seat. It's from the old French for comfort, soothe, and come fresh. And then the Latin, you comfort and soothe by coming alongside. So just as chaplains do, you come alongside and comfort and ease. So this text both offers vivid practice instruction and also the gift of ease. From a very alive child, when he was 7 years old, he memorized and knew some 500 characters. He was hungry for Dharma. His uncles recognized him, his parents recognized him, and at the age of 11, he left home and became a monastic, a cloud and water wanderer. Around the age of 18, when he was practicing, and you know, there is the practice of going around and listening. But always he was a writer, and that's in farming genes. I recognize. I think he wouldn't be able to write the way he does, to have such penetrating effect on those of us who are farmers, had he not cultivated the empty ground, not only in a literary way. So at the age of 18, he woke up from hearing a monk read from the Avatamsaka Sutra, the eyes which our parents gave us, can behold 3,000 worlds. And he was well raised and well released by his parents. The eyes which our parents give us can realize and behold 3,000 worlds. He had a massive awakening. At the incense box temple, he went to tell the teacher what had happened. Teacher said, holding up the incense box. He asked Hongzhi, what's inside this box? And what did the monk say? He said, what does the mind do? Didn't answer what's inside the box. What does the mind do? The teacher countered, where does awakening come from? And then Hongzhi got a little sassy and drew an enso circle and threw it over his back. And the teacher said, you create muddiness. What is your capacity? And Hongzhi said, mistake. Don't see yourself separate from everything that is. Yes, he said, yes. A beautiful story. Beautiful, simple, rich, mysterious story. And then he continued to travel all around China, collect, and believe me, he was studying koans during that time. It's evident in all of the interactions. Although he was seen as a more quiescent person because he talked and taught silent illumination. And those of you who've been here and studied in the practice period in the autumn, you spent a full, good, long ango studying these teachings. So let them come back up in you fresh, because the person you were studying in the autumn is the author of these 100 sutras, 100 cases. So he practiced primal shikantaza and traveled all around China. And then in the year 1129, he went to Bright Virtue Monastery on Mount Tiantong, and he stayed put. He settled down. He dropped down for 30 years without moving. After 30 years, he left them, and he did this was an extraordinary broken down monastery. He made the vow not to eat after noon. They grew food and fed the whole community around the monastery. They were really serving and practiced silent, deep shikantaza powerfully and without stop. And on November 11th in the year 1157, he went down from the monastery, actually a little bit before that, and came back and took the sitting posture. And on November 11th, which is, as some of you may know, is Armistice Day, when you lay down your arms and make peace. It's also the day that Thich Nhat Hanh suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage, although he'd been a peacemaker all his life. On this very day in 2014, massive cerebral hemorrhage. The same day that Hongzhi died. And here's his poem. Illusory dreams, phantom flowers, 67 years, a white bird vanishes in the mist, and autumn waters merge with the sky. He died in sitting posture. And his body didn't decompose for a week. Must have been eating really gritty food. And a lot of grit, true grit. And what were the teachings? What were the teachings that he gave to us and that are evident and will unfold and feed each of us? And there's a few, and let me just mention them, and then we'll settle back into sitting. First of all and foremost, the teaching of silent illumination. To illuminate is to give light to clarify, and to adorn. An innate illumination means to be born with the light inside that knows how to give light to the world. Intrinsic, inward, pertaining to essential nature. So silent illumination, withdrawal from any particular focus and seeing all that is as unified in totality. Meditating without an object. Radical non-dualism and no goal. The monk writes, silent illumination is fully experienced in meditation and experienced in sincere, compassionate behavior in the world. Notice he's right there 800 years ago, reminding us not just sitting, illuminating, but serving. And not sitting so that you can serve or serving so that you can sit. Not transactional. Deeply undomesticated meditation. Raw, dangerous, incandescent, dark, quiet, not moving. And he had a great teacher. They called him dead tree stump teacher because he never moved. And people laughed at Hongzhi and said, all you do is meditate. You don't care about enlightenment, which is definitely disproven by the Shoyoroku. This bright, empty field, immanent in us all, can in no way be cultivated or artificially enhanced. We recognize it when we settle down. Please hear this. We recognize it when we settle down. Think of the guidelines that Dinan offered us this morning. These are the guidelines for meditation. Settle the posture. Cultivate an unselfish meditation. Motivation, pardon me. Settle yourself. And in your heart, an unselfish motivation with all beings. Is for years when I sit down, with all beings, I sit down. That's what I say. But how do you cultivate an unselfish motivation that includes recognizing how much suffering there is in the world without running toward it? And then attending the breath. And as appropriate, noticing the arising and passing of everything that is. You have to be settled to handle this. It's a tangle. And then you dedicate the merit again and again. To all beings, I offer gratitude for the shelter and gift of a place like Upaya Zen Center where I can sit. Silent illumination, turning the light inward and outward. And then just a few more points. I love these guidelines. They're from the practice instructions, and I've spent days going over this book. It's nice to have a fresh copy. Thank you, Todd. Mine is so worn out, it falls apart. So embody the teachings with independence. Illuminate fully on your own. Don't tell anyone what to do. So Manshin, you've warned us about this, but ultimately don't tell anyone what to do. And yet practice fully. These are paradoxical, all of them. Don't tell anyone what to do, and don't withhold the light. Don't look around and tell other people what to do. Please. And balance serenity and illumination. Again, in Monk Hongzhi's words, graciously share yourself with the 100 germinating grass tips. And here it is, the whirling dervish at the gate. Eiko Hensho. Again, from the author, take the backward step and directly reach the middle of the circle where light issues forth. Turn within and drop off everything completely. And he's teaching almost 200 years before Dogen Zenji begins to teach. They're made of each other. They recognize each other. They're innately part of each other. And yet they're distinct, unique, and empty of any separate self. In ultimate non-dualistic illumination, even ignorance is part of the field of Buddha nature. Even abject ignorance is welcome. I think of how much I resisted the Shoyoroku when I was a young practitioner because of all the competition and Strum and Drang and, just I know what that koan means, how much I resisted it. And that ignorance, I'm eating at its table here. It's a beautiful gift. So directly arriving recognize the mind ground Dharma that is the root source of all 10,000 forms. Even the flowers and leaves you see are the whole world, a single seed, an uncultivated field. Do not weed out new shoots, and the self will flower. Oh. Thank you for your attention, for stretching. And please deepen and strengthen and be surprised by your practice. Thich Nhat Hanh said, we're like a glass of turbid apple juice when we begin to practice. Fresh apple juice from the apple tree that just blew down. We used to collect crab apple juice and mix it with the sweet apple juice because the crab apple is the source of rootstock for all the great cultivated apples in the world. And so I would take a little bit of these bitter crab apples and mix them in with the sweet mutsu, Japanese, golden delicious, and other wonderful varieties, heritage apples. And then we would we would buzz the apple pieces into juice and see how turbid and confused the pulp and the fruit and the sweetness and the liquid is. Thich Nhat Hanh would often say, just put that glass in the windowsill and wait until it settles. You can skim off the pulp. Do you know you can make a rosary from the pulp of apples? You can dry that pulp and mix with rose petals and make little tiny beads and eat the blame. As Eiken Roshi said, eat the blame of taking away this pulp and then taste the sweet, clear elixir of Dharma practice for our times. Thank you very much.